the main thing in this, actually, really for doing this, and I think for any spiritual thing we are doing, is really practically how to get power inside ourselves to be able to constructively and creatively and positively make a difference to the many, many negative challenges that there are outside. And really, if we don't access our inner power, no amount of slogans or formulas or theories or words, which may be very accurate in themselves and very useful, but it's our own inner power, our own inner strength, that will bring them into my realization when I need to use them. Because often it's not that we don't know, but we forget to use them. And so the whole thing of mindfulness is how to remain conscious at the time of challenge and upheaval, so we don't forget. Because, we can lose our dignity and self-respect when I think, wow, I did it again. It happened again. And so, and to bring in also the other element of heartfulness, because mindfulness is very necessary, but if you don't have your heartfulness also as a balance, then it may go a little bit off. Like with anything, anything's like that. Silence is great, but if you don't balance it with action, it's not so good. And you find it's very difficult for often a person to really find the middle way, and this is where true mindfulness comes in, because it helps you and experience. This is what I wanted to start off today. We talk a lot about knowledge, and we're in a world now that is full of knowledge. You go to Google, you can find anything, which is great. Right? Knowledge is a power. Knowledge opens my mind and also my heart. It opens many things. But truly, direct knowledge is actually experience. And it often comes in silence and through practice. Indirect knowledge is the description of what is possible. So we actually have indirect knowledge. Although we may read the original book, we may get the original writer, we may get, we go to the original place. Until there is an experience, and it is usually through silence and practice, it will remain indirect knowledge. And that is what we're facing today. Because everybody describes honesty. Everybody describes love. And people describe how it works. But it remains indirect because it's not experienced. So we have many formulas that are good, The government official give us all the, the right words, the right phrases, but things are not working because there's not the experience of knowledge, because there's not the personal commitment to practice, and there's not that silence time, that reflection of how to practice. Because this is really what we're having now. This is why people are very suspicious of words. Love, what do you mean? Bollywood, what do you mean? Trust, when and why? People ask me that. Yeah, I said it's good to trust, and I say why. I said, why would you ask why? The fact that you're asking why means it's not a direct experience for you at all. And also, if we are always in upheaval, if we don't have a stability, a self-dignity, then we don't know very much about love. Not really. So I think it's very important to clarify this thing between indirect knowledge, which we do need. I'm not saying we don't need it. We do need it. But remember, it's simply possibilities. It's not actually the fact that is in my action and in my life. Because if it was, and if it is, things change. Things change. Things get better. So at the moment we are in a dire need for direct knowledge. That is real experience. Real, genuine. When it's direct knowledge, when it's the experience of it, then it's real, it's genuine, and it is empowering. It gives me power, it gives me strength. And so we need the great need now is for inner power, strength. Because there's a lot of false power around, a lot, and I put some things here, it's abundant everywhere, false power. Position, roles, anything else, image making. There's a lot of image making, the famous vitrina. It's a power, but it's a false power because, with a vitrina, a window, you throw a stone, it breaks, it shatters. And this is everywhere, by the way. Don't think this is just in Greece. I think in America they're the big producers of images, India also, we think it's very spiritual, but it's collapsing under the weight of this tinsel that is, the tinsel, you know what it is? It's a sort of looks nice, it's like gold, but it's hiding the rot that is there. And this is why you have all these episodes coming up. In whatever country it is, these things are coming up. So there's, ambition, love of position, roles. People get their sense of value through that. Or even, what another very big false power is? Relationship. I am something because I belong to you. I am something because my children worship me. Well, maybe not now. It has changed a bit. But too much value via. There's no inner power when things are via. Yes, but English, I'm using the word in English.
Yes,
via. Through. It is through. Through somebody. Who you're married to doesn't matter at all. Of course, they give you a hard time, but or even a good time, but you are different. Your inner power doesn't depend on the relationships, because they come and go. They satisfy, they dissatisfy. It's certainly not, position, role, all these other things. So, and the problem is that sometimes I cannot see that these are all false supports. Only when I'm in pain or sorrow, And I've got to do something about it. Spirituality means doing something about it. Taking responsibility for a better life. That's what spirituality means. It doesn't mean just to believe in something. It's to take a responsibility, to make a commitment to myself. This is spiritual. And of course we know the results of, false power. I wrote them down here. I didn't want to put them all up there. But I think you know them anyway. There's no peace, no respect, no harmony, no cooperation, real cooperation, a lot of fear, a lot of worry. I think the biggest thing is, when there's no power, is actually, there is no trust. I'm not sure. And you're always like very on a fragile, thin ice you're standing. Because it could open a hole any time. You could go down any time. So where am I going to get that support? And that real power or strength that I need inside. When someone has real power or real strength inside, they are not influenced by the negative. Of course, this inner power takes time to accumulate and to cultivate. And when a person has inner strength, they can face anything, anytime, confidently. They always have that confidence to face. And they're not afraid of their mistakes. They don't ignore their mistakes. They don't punish themselves because of their mistakes, and they don't punish others because of their mistakes. You see a lot of people always trying to make other people guilty about what they didn't do or should have done. This is not power. When I take the respect away from somebody else, it will never empower me. I'll get into a constant animosity with that person because they react. Maybe they don't react verbally, but they'll react inside. Because someone who is really powerful can empower others. They're able to give the other respect to, they're able to generate that respect in themselves. So do I have power or strength? Whereas the question is, what I have to ask myself is, where is really my support? Where is it truly? And I need to reflect on this. I can look over my week. How was it? Over 1 week, 2 weeks, yesterday, how was it? Yeah. If I came into a disappointment, if I came into an anger, if I came into a lethargy. Lethargy is difficult to see. Lethargy, people just, says, what's a lesa Ελληνικά? No, there's another word. What do you say when somebody's like jelly? Because I think so, I don't remember. But anyway, it's like that. This also means sometimes it's not reactive, the lack of power. It can be actually a passive state. Well, I've resigned myself. I've resigned myself to something. This is a lack of power also. So, how do I get real power? Genuine power? Real strength comes from my inner system. Everything in this world is based on systems. Huh? Society is a system. Mother Nature, she runs on a system. That's why we get a few problems now, because her system is being interfered with. So and then there's going to be many imbalances. When there's an imbalance, there's always extra of the wrong things. More earthquakes, I was reading somewhere today that the fishermen in different places are suffering their boats because of the global warming. The fish are wanting to go to the colder places. Tornadoes, they're expecting a lot in America. Why? It's not God's holy hand. God doesn't do those types of things. It's actually, it is man's disrespectful hand that interferes, disrespectful finger that always is interfering all the time. And the repercussions, do come. The thing is, You see, when a person isn't mindful, is not mindful, they are not aware of the subtle consequences to choices and actions over time. There are subtle consequences to choices and actions over time. And what happens? We see the big thing, and when we see the big thing, you know, earthquake or killings or things like that, or, you know, people get traumatized, they get angry, they feel victims, they resign themselves. They want either the government to give a solution. The government has more and more problems, not able to. And God, they ask God, even people who don't believe in God so much, when it gets to the crunch, you hear them calling out for assistance. And, you know, is that assistance? Assistance is always given, divine assistance, but, you know, if I'm mindful, I don't have to wait so long, and I don't have to wait for the final crunch for things to go really bad. Because when somebody is mindful, they are more subtle in their understanding. And you know, they can see things before they happen. You don't have to be Pythia for this. Oracle. It was that the oracle could see and used to give cryptic answers. You know why the oracle gave cryptic answers? Because she knew a lot of, or whoever it was interpreting, I don't know, but he or she knew that a lot of people, for certain things, wouldn't really be listening. You know, people don't really listen to solutions. They just want, sometimes they, but the Pythia told me this, but Apollo said this, so cryptic. You decide. And this is the whole thing, that then people want solutions to the actual problems they've created, both individually and collectively. So, to avoid this, or to change it within myself, I have to start to use my inner system. Don't wait for the society system to help me. Especially in Greece, you know, it won't. It just won't. Everything's collapsed. Some other countries it's also collapsed, but in some countries it's still working, the system is working. But you'll find that, you know, whether economic system, welfare system, political system, you know, hospital system, all these things collapse, because the consciousness is getting lower and lower. It's why? What does it mean, a lower consciousness? Selfish, self-seeking. So it creates a separateness. We'll talk about this later when we get to what's mindful and what is mindless, because there must be an opposite to it. But the inner system, yes, it's now polluted with the selfishness. Where and how? The inner system is inside me. You know, I'm the closest person to myself. No one's closer to me than me. Reach in. Find the blueprint. And we reach there with, first of all, understanding, need understanding, and then our thoughts. We can reach there with our thoughts. And of course, feelings and attitude play a part as well. The inner system, the mind. It's the mind that is the producer of my thoughts. It's the intellect. It's the ability of the self to realize, to discern, to filter. When a person does not have this ability to discern and to filter, you know, they keep going around in the same circles. There's no new entry point into life, because their consciousness is always going around in circles. And then the other inner system is the original feelings, the original qualities, which we all have an instinct for. We all want them. Love, peace, happiness, purity. Wisdom, it's very deep in us. But, if the pollution is there, we can't actually really experience them. We are given, again, we have indirect knowledge, we're given a description. Love, unconditional love works like this. But it's very difficult to have unconditional love, isn't it? I don't think it's that easy. You get angry at somebody because they're not like they are not like you think they should be. Is that unconditional love? We don't, but I don't like the way they are. They're dishonest, they're false. So unconditional means I can go beyond that and see them really as souls, or see their value. It's very difficult for us to go beyond the personalities of others. It doesn't mean I mustn't see it, but it's one, because sometimes I need to see certain things. It's one thing to see it, it's another thing to be stuck on it and react to it. Someone who has inner power and is really mindful and is working from their inner system, they are healers. They will seek to heal rather than to add to the disease of the other by reacting to their weakness. I know this is very easy to say in words. But it is, because when we have to put it into action, this is why mindfulness is so important. I've got to see the gap between the code that I say I believe in and then actually my actions. This is mindful. I need to be very honest. In this game, there's more detail to that, but as I said...
I would like to ask a funny question.
Yes.
Sorry for the interruption.
That's okay.
Could somebody tell me on Greek what mindful means, συνειδητός?
Συνειδητός, νομίζω είναι συνειδητός. Είναι κάποιος που έχει επίγνωση, Επίγνωση is aware.
Okay, thank you, because I was not having the direct experience.
Yes, it's mindfulness. But so we go inside and the inner system is there. I can start to use it, And this is, we call it soul consciousness, we call it awakened spirituality. But you have to understand, I think we all need to understand, this is not a religious thing. It's very practical, it's personal, it's daily. And it's always going towards the better. I suppose one aspect of towards the better is reconciliation. To be able to reconcile inside myself with, certain things that maybe I judge too quickly, I reject them. Even in myself I may do that. Of course it may be difficult to embrace straight away, that's for sure. But at least I can keep peaceful. Embracing is another level, but at least peaceful, easy. So we get now to this thing of mindful and mindless. And some of the things of mindful, that is to be when I'm aware. You see, mindful is this, that I am conscious. And also I'm very, very, very honest with myself. And really I check my code and then my actions. Because if I don't do this checking, I don't refine myself and I don't grow. But mindful is a very important thing of mindful, is aware of the impact of choice and action. Aware of the impact is there are consequences to my choice and my actions. That's why people who are very emotionally impulsive are very dangerous. They do not create closeness. And if I fly off the handle, you know this term in English? If I fly off the handle very easily, and I say, well, it's my nature, I'm Mediterranean. It's not an excuse. It has an impact. It cuts bridges. Once when I was in Turkey, I lived in Turkey for 2 years, and they say, but I was explaining something, but we're Turkish. We're Turkish. I said, sometimes we use our nationality as an excuse. Because first of all, actually, I'm a human being. And human beings share very similar modes of behaving, how they feel they belong, whether it's love, whether it's peace. It's the same. There's a feeling that's quite universal in these things. So I can't, just use the excuse of my nationality or my character and therefore excuse the negative impact I have on others and others around me, It needs to change a bit. If I'm mindful, if I'm not mindful, I don't care much. Then I can be mindless. So, appreciative. A mindful person is very appreciative. A mindful person is appreciative of others, of themselves, of the moment. Very appreciative of the moment, of the present. They see it as a big opportunity. And they're very open always to new horizons, and new possibilities. Mindful person realizes that they don't have to be stuck. They are not condemned because of something of the past. A mindful person always has one particular, very deep aim, learning. They can learn. They're not caught up in regret. When a person is mindless, they tend to get caught up in regret and feeling guilty. I'm mindless. A mindless person, instead of appreciating the difference, can become very critical. Very, very critical of themselves also. It's not they're just critical of others. And mindless is, I don't think before I speak. I don't care much about consequences. Mindless, I work to a pattern that is years and years old, very rusty. It's not contemporary anymore. It's not current. It's like, I want to go to Paris and I decide to walk. Well, it's, maybe if you're young you can do it, but at a certain age you can't. Maybe it's easier, get a plane, do something else, I don't know. But the reality is what is current. A mindless person has no idea. They can be living how they were 20 years ago. Or they see somebody with the same vision of 20 years ago or 10 years ago. Mindful is, I change my vision daily. Daily I have to make that attention. Because it requires an attention. It's easy to slip into the habit of past, seeing and evaluating things in the past. In the same way I did in the past. A few other things. Blaming, mindless, blame, compare, irresponsible, bounded. They're in the same circuit. And they have a mindless person will have circular thinking rather than ascending thought. The mindful person, their thought will ascend. It'll go to a higher level. And therefore more positive, less thinking also. Mindful, actually, you start to think less and you become aware more. mindless thinking. That's why they get stressed. Mindless person gets very, very, very stressed, and they make others stressed. And they have a mindless person has a very good memory for what people did to them. Very bad memory for what they did to others. They forget. Mindless person has convenient forgetfulness and convenient remembrance. This is mindless. Yeah? And another thing with a mindless person is because they're always going in the same circuit, this is the stage of complaint. And it's usually they don't have enough respect for themselves to go somewhere else. I mean, go somewhere else. They don't have that sort of inner motivation. Because they like to be martyrs, or they like to be victims, or they've been told they are. Maybe they don't like, but they've been told certain things, and so that's where they stay. That's why you always need good company, new challenges, spiritual friendship. All these things help, don't they? We were in Delphi a few weeks ago, and with a group of people, it was such a rich experience in the sense that we just shared a similar wavelength, and the silence in the morning was so good. Actually, we did this. We did it with some American people. It was the Global Peace Initiative of Women, and they wanted to organise something here. And I think I told some of you it was like 2 months before. I thought, we had to find, I said, can you get the people? I said, once part of me became a bit mindless and started to work in their old rhythm. But, it's not long enough. People, they may have booked things, the usual mindless, why it can't. Mindless is why it can't. Right? Mindful, why not? It can happen. Go for it. And this is one of the characteristics of a mindful person. Actually, it's linked with being heartful, and I think it's more heartful, is they're adventurous. A mindful and heartful person are very adventurous. They will risk, they will try, they will dare, they will venture. Mindless person builds a cocoon of very fragile security. And this is why we are getting what we're getting now. With a lot of people, they built their security on very fragile things. Whether it was money, whatever it was. The government will pay them the pension, and now they don't have any money. Whereas if I'm more mindful, I will realize more and more my wealth comes from my attitude. My security and my protection comes from the intention behind my actions. I'll have all the protection I need when I'm clean inside. And many people say, but I am clean, and things still go wrong. So, maybe you're not clean enough. But mindful is I'm very honest. If I see things happening, I think, okay, am I that clean? Am I that honest? It's not a matter, mindless person will condemn themselves with such questions. A mindful person will find such questions liberating. Maybe I've got a bit of block in the old head. Let me see it. A mindful person is glad to see it. A mindless person avoids because it's a threat. The image is being broken. But sometimes it's good to break the image because something better will come out. So mindfulness. So how to recharge our mindfulness during the day. Because we need to do some mindful exercise in order to keep it. And one of the things that has been very useful is very, 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 very short meditations. Because meditation, that is, to go into silence, to become aware, and to connect. Mindfulness, one characteristic of a mindful person is connectedness. They can connect. And to recharge my awareness, to recharge my inner strength, to recharge my positivity, I need to be able to take some time out. And so in order to take time out, break everything into the smallest unit because it becomes a lot easier. 1 second. We all have a second, don't we? 1 second, the smallest unit of time. It's 1 second. The smallest unit of consciousness, one thought. The smallest unit of this body being alive and doing something is a breath and a heartbeat. You think about your breath and a heartbeat. That's all in 1 second. Well, mine is. I don't know about others, but 1 second. One breath, 1 second, one heartbeat. And time, second belongs to time, breath and heartbeat to my physical existence, and thought to my inner system. And I bring them together. And the thought, just a thought, who I am. I am peace. I am spiritual being. And I connect with my original peace. Because the real inner strength is peace. Peace stabilizes. Peace harmonizes. Peace releases me from overthinking. So, I am peace. And with my breath, I can relax. Peace, peace, serenity. And when I have the thought, not to do it quickly, but to do it very slowly and hold it. Hold it for the next few seconds. Hold it. Keep it in the awareness. It's very important to move from thought to awareness, because otherwise, if I don't move from thought to awareness, I'll just be, what many people do is just saying a mantra or just praying, just saying words. I have to be able to go into the heart of the thought. I am. I say I am. If I do it slowly, I am soul. I can feel my eternity, the uniqueness of my being. And peace. If I can hold that original peace, I will feel it actually releasing everything. It's relaxing my breath. It's relaxing my heartbeat. And that's very useful, when we are stressed. And what we do is then hold it, go very slowly, and then repeat it again. But not to repeat it mechanically. You see, people become mindless when they just mechanically repeat words that originally came from very spiritual thoughts. Prayer once was a very spiritual thought. It was a spiritual thought. And the person who said it originally felt it. But then it became used as a routine, as a ritual, so it didn't have the power. So I mustn't mindlessly say, I am peace, I'm a soul, peace, release, relax. It's it may sound funny, but a lot of people do that. They make it into a technique. It's actually not real mindfulness is not a technique. I know it's a little maybe difficult, when describing it, but I'm giving indirect knowledge now. I'm describing, but then as I practice it, it starts to become direct for me, But, you need to describe it, otherwise how will you experiment with it? So, so in order to make it not just into a technique, but into an awareness and experience, it's very important to concentrate and to do it slowly and with full attention. I cannot give the excuse of sound, noise, other people, the work, the computer, the telephone. I cannot use these excuses. Because if I do, I will become mindless. I will not become mindful. And so things stay the same. I need to recharge. Everything that is to be recharged must be still. Your mobile phone, you've got to plug it into a socket and it remains there for some time and it recharges. You can't take it out, put it in, take it out, keep it there. Otherwise, it won't recharge. Because it's all about, mindfulness is all about recharging. And how am I going to recharge? It is through the second, the thought, the breath, and the heartbeat. And so we use also, Om Shanti, Om I am, Shanti, peace, balance. So we'll do it together now, this. And just sit very relaxed. Just relax the body. And begin with, again, the breath in 1 second. And feel your heartbeat. And just have that thought, one thought. Relax. Feel the breath go out. I relax. I relax my body. One breath. I relax my heartbeat. 1 second. One thought. Peace. Om Shanti. Shanti. One thought. One breath. One heartbeat. Peace. Peace. I am. I exist. I am energy. One breath. 1 second. One heartbeat. I feel the rhythm of time, the rhythm of my body. peace, harmony, balance. I hold the silence. I hold the peace. Om Shanti, Shanti. I am. I am peace. In the silence, I recharge. With my breath, I relax. My heartbeat, I relax. Let me remain in this awareness. Peace. Relaxed. Stillness. Full. I feel full. Peace. Shanti, Shanti. I hold the silence within myself. Peace and silence. Peace and silence. So you feel your body relaxed, the breath, the heartbeat. Now, my thoughts either recharge me or discharge me. It's one or the other. If I'm thinking, one of the two is happening. If I'm in mindfulness or awareness, I'm neutral. I'm in an equanimity. And of course, not just the thought, because once there's the thought, there's the attitude and there's a feeling. So if they are negative, we discharge a lot. This is why keeping mindful is during the day to stop like this. This was quite long. You don't have to stop as long. It can be much shorter. But the key is not fast and to be really there. I have to be present. I am mindful. That's what I mean. I am mindful of the thought of peace. That peace I'm giving to myself, I'm emerging. Because, we just say peace, but it brings many things. It brings clarity, stability, freedom from violence also. We have very violent thoughts. It's a big thing, peace. I mean, sometimes it doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a real lot, actually. And so just to stay there, hold it. 10 seconds. 15 seconds. And I have to give all of myself to that exercise, to that experience. All of myself. Body and soul. Otherwise, it will not work. And there's no excuse to say, but I don't have 10 seconds. Is there? We all have 10 seconds. 15 seconds. And if I do it 6 or 7 times during the day, it builds up. What does it do? It builds up my inner strength. And when I build up that inner strength, the outside is not so threatening or so bad. My intellect is clear to discern. My intellect's clear. I find clarity. So not difficult, is it? Susan, is it difficult?
No, it's not difficult. You have to remember to do it.
Yes. Well. Yes. Remember to remember, This is the thing. But, once I learn this, because it's not a difficult thing to learn, but it's, you see, we forget because it's a subtle thing. This is why it's subtle. If we have something more concrete, we don't, It's subtle. But power is in the subtle. Any question about this? About this exercise? Try it, try it for, try it for a few days, see how it goes. Try 3 or 4 days, stopping at work, wherever you are. Doesn't matter where you are. At home, at work, whatever, it can be done. So if you experiment for about 3 days, and you see it working, then you'll be, it's an automatic motivation to keep doing it. Because it's only when it's direct knowledge that the motivation comes. Indirect knowledge may be inspiring. It's not the same though, is it? Until I do, I cannot become. Yes, of course, there are steps before. I listen, I understand. Of course, these steps are required also. But the ultimate step is, I do. And this is why we have these seminars, because we all forget to do. We all forget to do what we know. We are strange, aren't we? Human beings. But when we really become mindful, in terms of also that exercise, and also there are certain, certain aspects of attitude and knowledge that help us as well to keep them in awareness. There's positive opposites integrate together creatively. This is what happens with mindfulness. And I've got just a few examples. I'm sure there are others. Observe, participate. Someone who is mindful, they will not go to an extreme of observing, because then they'll never participate. Most people go into extremes of both, actually, but not in a mindful way. They're mindless observing. Mindless observing means mindless participating. Mindless observing is, being mindless, very critical. But when I participate, I'll be critical. So opposite. Observe, participate. Perspective, like I step back, I get perspective, I step in and detail. Because sometimes I must deal with details. I have to deal with details. But the problem is, if I'm mindful of perspective, I can get lost in details. He said, she said, they didn't say, they should have done, they did. Okay. Yeah, okay. But go back, get the perspective of the whole picture, and see what they said or did within a bigger picture. Maybe, and then it's not so dramatic or maybe so bad. But we do need also to understand detail. Like the surgeon, the surgeon in the heart who's making heart, he or she has to understand the detail of where to put the incision. Otherwise, you can't do it. Can't just have the perspective of the heart. You need both. And so you have to integrate them. Mindful person is a good integrator. Focus and flow. So to be focused, determined, concentrated, that creates a depth. When I concentrate on something, I can go into the depth of it. But if I over-focus, or I am over-determined, I kind of suffocate. And also, if you're with over-focused people, you suffocate. You feel suffocated. There has to be ability to focus, but also to flow. I focus on something, go into it, and then let it flow. You've got to leave things. Many times you've got to leave them. The gardener is focused on planting the plants correctly, plants them, does this. Then he flows. He lets nature do things. It's not all up to him, is it? Passive and active. We need to be passive as well. Unfortunately, in the Western world, we always regard this word in a negative way, don't we? But actually, it's a very healthy part of being active. It is, Passive. Let things happen. Receive. Allow. Or I have to give, I have to do, I have to create it. No, you don't. Not all the time. No, you don't. You've got to also receive. This is the problem, with being too analytical and sometimes actually also insecure and fearful, so people feel they have to control everything. They can't allow themselves to be more passive, that is more open, and, trust. Let things come also. But of course, extreme passivity is not good. It goes the wrong way. Also, extremely being active is also not good. It goes the wrong way also. And see, for all of this to happen in an integrated proper way, I need to be mindful. And one aspect of mindfulness there is discernment. To have empathy with the situation. Empathy with situation creates the right discernment. So I will know whether I should be maybe more passive or more active. As I said, these are just a few. There are many other things, many others as well. Stillness and expression. It's very beautiful to be still. In Delphi, when we did the meditation in the morning, one of the beautiful things we did it early, 4 o'clock we got up. It was really still. It was soothing, wasn't it? Those who did it. It was really soothing for the soul, I tell you, soothing for the mind. Just the stillness, it was just, like enveloping, it was very positive stillness. But then at 6, when we went back again, at 6 o'clock, it was more expressive. The birds were singing, other things were happening, and it was also nice too, because stillness, its completion is then expression. You've got to have both of them. And silence and speech. Words embody a thought, and this is why a lot of words, a lot of speech now is mindless. If speech is mindful, then that speech comes from a silent space, a reflective space. And then when they speak, it's meaningful. Mindful makes speech meaningful. But otherwise, mindless words, meaningless words. And this is what we have, That's why nobody believes anybody. Because this is what it has degenerated to this level of mindlessness. So we need to, if we experiment with these things, we see how it is. But again, like with anything, if you're only mindful, there can be a danger if you don't balance it with heartful. Because if you're only mindful, it can be too intellectual, too self-absorbed, too sometimes clinical. It can be sometimes too analytical, and there's not sometimes there's not another reference point. Yes, there may be a code of knowledge as I make my reference point, but it can sometimes get too self-centered. Although it has an extremely positive use and it's extremely necessary, the danger is it gets too intellectual. And so it needs a balance with heartfulness, using your heart together with your mind. But before we go to heartful, we can look at heartless. When people are mindless, they're usually heartless. Or is it that they're heartless and they become mindless? Whichever way. But again, heartless, some of the things are very intellectual, very mechanical, over-personalized. Things are over-personalized. They're very emotional. But emotional they're very parochial. Me, mine, I and mine. It's a very heartless person. They don't care about other people. They don't care about community. It's me. Just my grandchild. There's 1,000 other grandchildren. My children, there's 1,000 other children. My rubbish, cleaned from my doorstep. But what about other people's doorstep? You just throw it there? So, and when a person is heartless, I find they can be very narcissistic and, nationalism, very nationalistic. They're very stuck to their nationality or they're stuck to their social position. And I'm from far, heartless, because what you notice is heartless can be either getting too intellectual or too emotional. It's either way, It's the great inability to tune in. And a person who cannot step back from themselves can be very, very cruel, very heartless. This is what we find in times of... You find two things happen in times of crisis. The best comes out or the worst comes out, isn't it? In times of war, you hear these horrible stories, what people do to each other, and any little revenge, any little things come out. But also you hear about very heroic people who sacrificed, who really went beyond their own limits to protect others, to help others too. But all will come back to what, the person is inside, And so I mean, there are other examples of heartless, I'm sure. As I said, this is not a first. And heartful. One of the... another thing too with heartless is that people can be... they have a big lack in compassion, big lack in forgiveness. And, just not sensitive. Heartful. One of the characteristics of a really heartful person is their humility. They are humble. Not a popular virtue these days, because, everything, I have to assert myself, I have to know myself, I have to, this sort of self-indulgence, who I am and what I am, and, it goes to the extreme. Humility, some humility makes a person very heartful. Humility also, this game of life is not all up to me, there are other factors that are working as well, it's not this little me that is the most important. This is a very big problem with Western, and I was thinking actually that it was Western culture, but going to India so often, I realise it's everywhere the same, just that, it's camouflaged better. And this individualism, individualism is very different from uniqueness. When a person realizes their uniqueness and is expressing it positively, they have enough self-respect to be humble, because if I know really who I am, I don't have to tell everybody. Everybody doesn't have to know my story in detail. Yes, there are moments when it's useful, other moments it's not so useful. And you find the big danger, especially on a spiritual path, is the lack of humility. Because, I think they've reached, they know it. And this leads to, and you see, it leads to a dogmatism. And this is heartless. So many wars, so much cruelty in the name of the divine has happened. They've forgotten their heart. Because originally all religion, whatever it was, it came from the heart. It didn't actually, the mind was later. It came from the heart. But then gradually, it became, either over-emotional, over-intellectualized because there were power trips, power games, emptiness, therefore I must dominate. So the heartfulness was lost. So one of the key things that creates renewal and creativity is a space. Humility gives that space. Humility always grants space. What is humility? Willingness to learn. And we always have to keep in mind, there's another perspective to what I know. Always, isn't there? There's always another perspective. It's not the only perspective. And sort of this humility enriches a person, makes them very heartful because then they can appreciate differences. They can appreciate time. Everything's not done all at once. They can, appreciate their mistakes. They can appreciate many things. They don't condemn. Because they are well with themselves. And what we said earlier also, a heartful person is adventurous. They will try things that other people haven't tried. When Leonardo da Vinci, as a boy, was told, he wanted to fly, and they said, no, you can't. Not possible. If God wanted you to fly, He would have made you with wings. Forget it. Many things have happened. One of my, one person that I really feel was a had really good qualities always was Florence Nightingale. She started a whole thing that now is all around the world. And he was this young British woman whose aristocratic family, she wanted to, all these soldiers, because, soldiers in the war left on the ground and just died. I mean, there was no one to care. She said, I have to do something about this. And her family said, are you nuts? Are you okay? You get married, have children, this is your thing. I said, no, I don't want. He said, no, you have to. Actually, they say in the story, it was her mother and sister who were more pushy, actually. Her father not as pushy. But she was adventurous. Adventurous in such a way that comes to try to do... One aspect of being adventurous in that way is compassion. There's compassion to do new things. And you don't listen to the opinions of society. And it's such a heartful person is also a mindful person. They've got that balance. And they will really hear a heartfelt call for something. They will feel that call to a kind of a destiny. They'll feel that call to doing something. And because of that strength, it doesn't matter what others say. They'll not be violent with others, but they will do what they have to do. Because you don't have to be violent with others to do what you have to do. Eh? You don't have to fight. You don't have to box or anything. Just do it. So Florence Nightingale was not distracted because she thought of the suffering of those soldiers. And then she started a whole thing, a whole thing. Nurses' Day is on her birthday. It's celebrated throughout the whole world. But you see, that was not in her mind, how they would celebrate, what they would do. All these things come later. Usually the people that have opposed you the most later on celebrate you. But at that moment, it's like you've got a heartful person will resonate with their inner calling and their destiny and what they have to do. And they will not be against anyone. They will not even be against the people who are against them. They have the art to go beyond it. They don't get stuck in animosity. A heartfelt person will not get stuck in animosity. And, there are many things with heartful, inclusive. They'll be inclusive. They'll be generous. Generosity. I remember Daddy Janki, she's 97, and I think I've shared it with you, but once she defined generosity, because she asked us once, says, what's generosity? And we said, to give, to share. She looked at us and she said, kindergarten answer. This is a kindergarten answer. One more mature answer. I was trying to think, what is generous? And she said, what real generosity is? You never think twice about anyone's weaknesses. You never... And she said, actually, if you're really high, not even once. But okay, peritorio, twice. Don't keep other people's weaknesses in your heart. This is the biggest generosity. Yes. So she said that. She used that word, weaknesses in your heart. So if I am heartful, I'll be generous in that way. It doesn't mean I'm not aware. It doesn't mean I have to discern. Of course I have to do that. But I don't have an animosity. And also, you see, to be loving to others doesn't mean, or to be positive to others doesn't mean that you let them do what they want to you. It doesn't mean that. You can put a break, you can put a things, but inside you, you're connected with that soul, good wishes, but I'm not going to waste that time. So there's no animosity there, there's no bad feeling there. You see, and when you have self-respect, you can put borders without bad feelings. Because, I don't really want to put them there, and maybe in 1 year they go away. I don't know. The borders, I mean, not the people. So, this is the whole, and Heartful had many, and also a very important thing, I think, a a heart-filled person is able to connect with the source, the creative source, the divine. And this is a very big difference with just being mindful. If you don't connect with, you see, I remember when I used to read, the Greek, Homeros, Iliad. Not that I read it all, I just read the beginning. It's too long for me. And I always go for short poems and short things. But they'd always invoke a higher deity, They would invoke the muse. They would invoke, something higher. Now, it's all me, I'm the creator. Copyright on everything, Copyright on everything. There's no, on something original, there's no copyright on it. The more original something is, there's no copyright. People put copyright now on novelty. Novelty is different from originality. It's quite a different thing. This is another seminar, so I won't go into it. But novelty is, sensational. It goes off quickly. Fashion changes. Pretty self-centered. Whereas original is far more creative, and it's very democratic and universal. It touches many souls beyond borders. Beyond the border of where that person or that group of people is. Like whether it's, Lao Tzu in China, whether it's Plato in Greece, they're beyond being Greek or Chinese because they spoke to something higher and can spread to many others, Someone who is connected to a higher source has that ability. And I think in this particular time, we need also to have that awareness that there is also a higher source that I have to partner with. And that's the difference between, I would say a major difference between just being mindful and combining with heartful. Mindful is inward, you're introspective, and outward. You tend to, you look at the situations, you look at the things, you have a certain code, and you use it. It's good. It's not that it's not good, it's good. Whereas heartful combines the mindful inside. That is, it's inward, but it's also upward. I mean, there's, the source, something high. There's a communication with the source in some way or another, And then they go outward. They can go inward and outward and examine and see, but they can also go upward and really recharge. And so the heartful becomes really the key, because the real knowing is with your heart, isn't it? It's with the feeling. For example, we do a workshop, right, on love and compassion, and it's useful. I mean, definitions and redefining and relearning is extremely useful. But, it becomes, again, the reality that is the real knowing is actually when there's the feeling of it when I'm dealing with people. That I am feeling that compassion with somebody who really, rubs me up the wrong way all the time. I can, I can remain in my peace. Not necessarily that I accept everything they say, but I can remain in my peace and then act from there. Because if we don't act from peace, we'll get to the same level as the other person. Act from anger, from reaction. I'm the same then. It's no difference. And so this connection, and this from the source, I will get grace. I'll get Sahaj. This is a very real energy. Grace and Sahaj. It is non-human, and we need that. Because we're down here, everything is encrusted and fossilized. And if we don't have this, how do you say it in Greek, grace? Charis, yes. This grace. And that is for, by the way, that's for everybody, yeah?
Yeah.
That can be for anybody. It's not just for the Orthodox, or just for the Catholic, or just for the Hindus, or just for the Rajyogis, or whatever it is. If my heart, again it's my heart, if my heart is clean, yes, yeah, if the intention is as clean as I can know it at this moment, of course, I may not be made, I realise in 1 week time it could have been cleaner, but it doesn't matter at this moment, then, I can receive that that unconditional love, that unconditional energy. This is called grace. In India we call it Sahaj. It's a blessing. It can lift you. It can open not just your mind, but also your heart. Because it's not enough to open our mind, we've also got to open our heart. And it's the way to understand it, one way that can help us, it's time now, to understand it, is think of the seeds, the seeds and the plants of the earth. I remember my father used to always tell me which plants to grow with whom, which plants, because they get on well with each other. Like for example, always it was roses and lilies get on fine, plant them close. Peppers, she said, peppers, keep them in one pot alone. They like it. They don't like sharing too much. He told me all these things, Anyway, what do you call it? Symbiotic, the relationship between plants and animals and plants, right? And that can happen. But, if there's no sunlight, a lot of that won't happen. The seed has the potential inside for everything. It is unique. But it needs also that light beyond the Mother Earth. It's not Mother Earth and Mother Nature is not enough. It also needs light. The sunlight from outside the earth. And when they combine together, and there is that partnership, then there's life. So this is the whole thing for us too. You see, sometimes we may go too much into ourselves and not enough upward. Some people do the other way, they go too much upward and not enough into themselves. They depend. Dependence is a big problem on so many levels. With the God level, it's a big problem. With other people, it's a big problem. But also to be lost in yourself and, all this. Because what happens if there's not this balance with the source, then my thinking can be very delusional. And also, the wrong connection with the source is very delusional too. Because actually it's not really a connection with the source. It's a connection with their projection of the source. It's a connection with sometimes their own ambition, their own opinions. So it's also very delusional. Often people's connection with God is extremely delusional. And you can tell it's delusional by the violence that comes up from it. So, when we're speaking of mindful, always to remember the heartful. And, this balance of the self and the source, and then the expression with the other is very, very, it's something that's actually very necessary. I don't, again, not the connection with the source in the traditional way, because it has been not really a connection. It's been a connection with a projection, with an abstraction that hides what hides behind the abstraction is selfish motives. Insecurity. That's why they'll kill another person from another religion. Or, they say the word heretic. They'll say ice cream.